My name is Jindřich Karasek, and 4n6strider is my thought to be cool nickname, but nobody uses it except Mario, so thank you. I'm really glad it works. Well, my speech is called Defending Against the Cognitive Warfare, but you may ask, who am I defending or who is defending against whom? So I will answer that later. Just pay attention to the pictures. It's like the one introductory, the cyborg on this slide. It's generated with DALL-E, and it has its own purpose. I generated it in a way so it causes some emotions in you, and pay attention to these emotions because it's important for you to learn to think about these emotions. So let's move on. Classic. Well, okay, nice. So who am I? I'm also security data analyst in general, but right now actually last 5 years I work for the Trend Micro, as Mario said, as a cyber threat researcher, which means that I'm hunting for the threats in the internet or devices, and the last couple years I also started to hunt for the threats in human brains. And it's quite interesting topic because it's how to put this? You don't have a firewall in your brain, so that means that anything you see, hear, or read, it gets to your brain and it gets stored, and it has some effects on what you are thinking further about, about everything. So, yeah, that's about mind hacking too. I have also some nice project about cheating the AI and machine learning models, but this would be whole big different presentation, so I will leave it out completely. But if you will search for some information about me online, you will find links if you are interested. Okay, thank you for your attention. Yeah. Okay, at least it's interesting. So, where do I start? So, why do I chose this topic? I chose this because as I research the threats, I see the cognitive warfare as the most serious threat, not just to current lives, but to humanity in general. Because if it's done properly, and trust me, it's being done properly, it can block our decision making, and basically the whole society will fail. So I believe it's important to research the topic, to learn how to do it, to prevent doing it by somebody else. And there is some ghost. Okay. Because you cannot hide against the cognitive threats. It's basically everywhere. You may live in some isolated location, but as long as you will communicate to some other people or societies, you will be influenced by the cognitive warfare, whether you want it or not. So the only way how to survive this is to evolve. We have to evolve our way of thinking to be able to live lives in the world with cognitive threats so that we are not influenced that much. But it's impossible to block the influence on your brain for 100%. Well, there are some requirements for you to acknowledge before I will actually start my presentation. First of all, this talk is apolitical. I speak about censorship, I show you how it's done, and so you also can derive from that how to avoid that censorship. All the opinions are my own. I will use some profanity and very foul language, so we are all adults hopefully, so let's be cool about it. The code I used is my own unless it's stated otherwise. If I used some work of the others, it's referenced in the slides. I cannot disclose all the sources of information because, well, I can't. And I would like to highlight that techniques, tactics, and procedures I mentioned can be done for the good and for the bad. So do not take me as this devil advocate that I'm defending the, control-based society, but it's what it is. And my goal of this talk is, first of all, to make awareness about cognitive threats, so you know it's going on, and maybe give you some hints how to defend yourself. So, yeah. First, I will say what is cognitive warfare, then I will mention why it's done, by whom, then I will elaborate on how, and this how means how to do the cognitive warfare, and also how to analyze it, because it's quite close tied. Then I will mention my project EOLAS, and yeah. And sorry, then I will also tell you what can you do on yourself on the daily basis. So cognitive warfare, it's if you want to wage a war against the country or against the nation, you can use the conventional techniques like tanks, infantry, and all the techniques of hot war, but it wouldn't be enough. It's better to use so-called hybrid warfare, which includes some other means of waging the war against your enemy, so you will make him weaker or confused, basically not be able to act properly. And this is called hybrid warfare. One of the way of do hybrid warfare is to influence the brains of the enemy soldiers and the enemy in general, and it's called cognitive warfare. Part of cognitive warfare is are information operations, so-called information warfare, which means it, for instance, it includes techniques to use the media to control public opinion. It's basically the PR, you know, from real life. And part of this all can be done also by the techniques of cyber warfare, which includes the conventional hacking, DDoS attacks, web defacing, leaking important data, cyber espionage. And this is my spot. This intersection of cyber warfare, information warfare, and cognitive warfare is what this presentation is actually all about. It's about the influence operations. And my all research is dedicated to how both sides of the coin, how to do the influence operation and also how to block it. If you are interested more about academic background behind this graph, I have added the link, and I hope the slides will be available for you after the presentation so you can see all the resources. So, this was cognitive warfare in theory. What is it in practice? I'm pretty sure that you have seen all these pictures yourself online, and maybe you were just thinking, okay, it's just innocent joke, but trust me, it's not. First, let's start with Calvin Klein. This picture is in various mutations, but it always includes some nice idyllic version of how it was and how it is now. And it's spread by the, well, threat actor to undermine the Western opinion about, well, it's supposed to show the decay of the Western civilization and to plant the idea to our brains that something is wrong with the society and we shouldn't trust the authorities. Then you have that bombs, that's this one. It's cute. It actually happened, but it's so obvious that I was thinking that it's just some sort of joke, but it wasn't. So what does it mean? This umbrella is Russia protecting a good Christian community against the attacks, and you can see who's responsible for the bombing. So it's LGBT, NATO, European Union, US, and of course Adolf Hitler, because obviously he never died. And this was Syria. Yeah, you can see where it was. It comes from the embassy of Russia in Bangladesh, but the same meme was seen in disinformation websites all over the world, because this is universal. This always this narrative uses our Christian cultural background, and it means that they try to. Sorry, I just got lost in my own words. They try to appeal on our Christian beliefs, because we all, whether you believe in God or not, we grow up in Christian value-based communities, so it's still here. and they try to appeal on it to make us believe that Russia is here to protect these values against the evil West and evil homosexuals, possibly. Well, this all may look funny to you, but it's already the cognitive warfare at its best. Maybe not that obvious, so I chose another examples, and I think this is much worse. This is narrative. I call it in toxical masculinity, and it's based on the fact that some of the guys, mostly, they are not able to find girlfriend in modern society, and they got socially isolated, and they search why it happened. So there are lures for them on social networks, which can suggest them how to pick up the girl, or why there is something wrong with them, or the explanation that there is nothing wrong with them, but there is something wrong with the society or women in general. I'm not sure if you understand all the text, so I will translate for you, and here comes the bad language. So this picture here says that every yawn can be turned into blowjob if you are fast enough. This is, the woman says, I love him so much, and he runs out of the money. And this says that life's easier with the boobs. And this one is very dangerous. It's called that if you think that you have no chance with pretty women, you are right. And this all comes from very toxic places on the network that is used by the, let's speak open. I was researching pro-Russia cognitive warfare campaign, and I find the resources on the darknet that they are forming communities of so-called incels. It means guys who are in involuntary celibacy, and they were using these memes to turn them into violent, to turn them violent. Some of the attacks on the Capitol were done by the individuals that were members of the very same forums, but this is of course translated to Czech because this campaign is in Czech Republic, or let's say Czech domain on the internet as well. And I think this is pretty sick. So I already explained why it's done. But why cognitive warfare? Why they just don't arrive with the tanks? So first of all, it's easier because they can use the tools that already exist. Everybody in the target countries is using internet and mobile cell phones, so we are all the time online, so we consume a lot of content that can be spoiled by the narratives like I showed you. It's cheaper than smart bombs, simply. It's scalable. You can attack 10,000 people or 10 million people by the very same infrastructure. You just pay more for the Facebook ads, and that's it. Most of the tools existed already for the campaigns, which is not only Facebook advertisement, but it's heavily based on it, at least for the countries like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Serbia, and Poland. And they do it also because they think it's covered. But I will show you later that it's not, and that it is possible to detect this, measure it, and act upon it. So I mentioned the term threat actor. I will explain what is it now. But sorry. Excuse me, I'm a bit cold, so. Yeah, so threat actor. For something to be threat, it has to have three prerequisites. First, it has to be capable of threatening us. Second, it has to have the malicious intent to do the harm to us. And third, it has to have the opportunity to harm us. If these three conditions are not met, the threat is not considered well as a threat. So if I say threat actor, it means that it's everyone who's evil, I mean, in our perspective, evil, and has these three properties, so he poses, or it poses a danger. From my life of cyber threat researcher, I can tell that most of the cyber incidents, not only in Czech Republic, but basically in the Western sphere of the world, is done in the interests or against the interest of Russia, China, or Iran. If you ask why enough, then you always get to these three countries. But sometimes you find some proxies like Hungary or Serbia or certain bribed people, which I wouldn't name here now, or the systems like compromised systems which happen in Hungary as well. So this is called a proxy because it's used by the threat actor to do the harm, like not indirectly. And how it's done? Simply put, all the cognitive warfare is based on weaponizing social interactions, both in online life and in real life as well. Well, the content has to cause some emotions or have some sentimental reaction. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. The point is to make you emotional about something, anything, and then use it against you. Because the more you get excited, the better it works. Imagine if you see some of your friend after a long time, first that maybe you will get some trash talk as well, but the important points of conversation would be about something that caused something emotional to you, like the good experience or the bad experience. And these narratives are the strongest because they spread fast in the networks. I mentioned disinformation because most of the cognitive warfare now is run via disinformation campaigns. And let's disseminate the campaign and explain something about the anatomics. So on the slide, you can see something that is called kill chain, and it comes from the military. And it's based on the idea that if you have some threat actor doing something evil to you, you can split it into phases. And if you disrupt some of the phases, then the consequential phases cannot occur, and the threat actor has to start from the scratch again, which is useful if you want to plan some defense against both cyber incidents and both the disinformation campaigns. So let's just go briefly through the slide. And first of all, there is a first phase called the recon. You have to simply find the cracks. And one of those cracks are those incels I mentioned in a couple slides ago. They are emotionally disrupted people who respond emotionally to certain content. And if you feed them this content, you can also feed them some other ideas along with this content, and they wouldn't realize. Of course, you have to be systematic about it, because it cannot be too obvious from the beginning. But I know this from my own life. I used to have one friend in Slovakia, and before COVID years, he was really reasonable, nice guy. We used to rock climb sometimes together, but he started to turn into anti-vax. And we had some disagreements because I'm a strong supporter of the pharmaceutical industry and the science behind, and he started to turn alternative. But at the end, he also started to tell me that I'm fascist because I was against the war in Ukraine, and he was so certain about it that I had to stop talking to him because it completely changed his personality. All he does now is to translate some silly blocks into Slovak language to promote this idea of fascism being spread in Europe. So this is the cracks. I'm sorry that I just said that my friend is crack, but that is what it is. So you have to find cracks like this, and then you weaponize some content for them. You can use from software development, it's called A/B testing. You just develop two or several hypotheses or variations of the content, and then you feed it to the audience, and you see the response. And what's the best response? It's what you promote to next stages. Then there is the seed phase. I will show you later on how does it look like in data analysis, because it's very difficult from the defender point of view to find this recon and build phase, but the seed phase can be already automatically detected and blocked. I'm sorry that I'm promoting censorship now, but hear me out. It's not that bad all the time. So this is the seed phase. And then it gets copied, amplified, until it gains the control about some informational space. You all know this with the news. Like one bad link gets shared by so many other people that you have suddenly the idea that this is the only source of the truth because it's basically everywhere. But that's just the campaign. And at the end, you have this effect. I abused a Lord of the Rings reference, sorry, guys, because at the end, the victims of the cognitive warfare are no longer capable of thinking clearly. They don't know they are being controlled, and they cannot let it go. It's so deep in their brains that they just lost their identity that existed before they were attacked, and they just live through the narratives. And yeah, I will stop here. To give you some example how it looks from the point of the data sources, I have prepared two pictures for you. First one is the blue, this one, and I extracted not some, but all of the data from chain mail campaigns in the year 2021, and it was against the COVID vaccination. And the goal of this analysis was to determine who is spreading the emails, who starts with the emails, like how it gets to the system, and who may be behind this, to be able to maybe identify some foreign, like influence operation, basically. It worked, and I just cut the picture to show you the three communities of forwarding these emails. I think you all have in your family at least one member who is feeding and forwarding you these manipulative emails. They are having these bold statements like EU is new Hitler and we have to quit NATO, and the vaccines are full of microblades that will cut you from the inside and stuff like this. The red picture is also from anti-vax campaign, but it's the different analytical technique. I used some web crawler that I coded, and it scraped all the website and found all the links that related to the website, and it found another website. And what was the website? It was basically the anti-vax promoting website that was spreading statements like all the Western vaccines are bad because they were not tested properly, and only the Russian vaccine is the good one because it's Russia, that's it. And curiously enough, my crawler found that the link was on the infrastructure. You wouldn't be able to find it if you would be just clicking through the website, but on the infrastructure base, there was a linked system that was hosting some eShop that allowed you to buy like alternative medicine for the vaccination based on the activated water. Don't ask me how the water was activated, I don't want to know, but trust me, it was really expensive. And it used the similar wording like on the website. So if you Googled the statements from the website because you want to confirm them, you would likely land on this eShop and probably buy some of the goods. So this is one of the examples how it works. And the idea in general how to hunt for this cognitive warfare campaigns is to monitor the data sources and take all of the kinds of the information into plain text, because then you can work with that further, as I will show you. So I scraped a couple of darknet forums dedicated to this toxic masculinity, and results were fed to the system that I coded to use Google BERT for topic modeling. If you are interested in this area, and I believe you should, then just see the references I will share at the end, because this is a really cool technique that allows you to process quickly even really huge data sets, like gigabytes of text. Text can be processed with quite simple script just to extract the topics. And it's important for, let's say, government analysts the government analysts who need to monitor the cognitive warfare campaigns in our country, they are not able to read all the content from all the weird websites and all the emails. So they have to use tools like this to go quickly through, see what's there, and then decide how to drive the strategic communication. Just to quickly jump in, you can see that there are some forever alone in cells. Again, forever alone, it's already grouped together, even though this text is like 5 gigabytes, if I remember correctly, and if I had to read it through, it would take me days, and I wouldn't be able to extract the topics like this. This is the bar chart representation of the above data, just to suggest that sorry, I should have started with explanation that this topic modeling was used to confirm the hypothesis that these forums on the internet are actually malicious. And it is, because you can see that this incels, it's over, and black pill is really popular there. And by the way, black pill is their synonym for suicide, because that's the final solution. Because they cannot find a girl to have sex with, they decided that they will just commit suicide and take as many girls as they can with them. So you can see it's quite toxic already. The black chart is like a graphical representation of another data set. This time I analyzed the Twitter content, not dedicated, but I extracted it based on the keywords that were related to war in Ukraine and refugees from Russia, because I was interested if I will be able to spot some campaigns there, and I did. The bubbles here, they represent some topics, like you can see here, only it's the bubbles. So for example, this says that we should accept Russian refugees because they are people too. This is related, because it's closed in the dimensions, it's related to the narrative that we should accept the Russian refugees because they are human and they didn't do us any harm. And then you have some other, let's say, opinions or topics. And this one is interesting because it's the troll farm that was not spotted before this analysis. And these small but closely related bubbles say very similar thing, and that the text was something like that there were fake checkpoints in Ukraine to accept the Russian refugees only to kill them later. And this narrative was supposed to be spread further through the Western countries to undermine the support of Ukrainians in the Russian war, basically. So this is the seed, as I mentioned in the kill chain slide. And because I know who tweeted this, I also can fingerprint the system for where it was tweeted from, so I can, let's say, cancel this influence operation right in the middle of the execution. Moving on, I mentioned sentiment. I'm not sure if you knew that sentiment is something that can be automatically extracted from the text, because there are several approaches how to analyze text in the how to analyze sentiment in the text, sorry. The one I used is based on rules, which mean that you extract some words which are known to have certain meaning, and then you fuck, I need to, sorry. So this is sentiment, basically. It can be quantified, and if you apply it for short spans of text, like the tweets, you get valuable data set about what is population or what is whole internet thinking about certain topics, which is both valuable for the defender against the cognitive warfare and also the offender, because then they know how to drive the campaigns. Sorry, I have to speed up. So another useful technique is using, while training neural networks to extract so-called named entity. And what's named entity? For instance, France is quite obvious, it's geopolitical entity, but with the Great Britain, if you wouldn't use neural networks but use some text-based rules, it wouldn't be able to extract Great Britain because it's two words. This is important because if you run the name entity recognition algorithm on some sample of the data, you can get again what's going on in the text, who is it about. And then there is the last part that's called parts of speech, and it gives me thrills because it reminds me of elementary school, and I hated it so much. I think until these days I'm not able to analyze or do this decision properly, so I'm really glad that the tools exist for me to do it. And so you have parts of speech recognition, named entity recognition, and sentiment, and you can put it together to some analytical approach to create a data set like this. This is my favorite training data set that I use to explain how cognitive warfare has to be analyzed to be able to block it, because it's based on a non-existing world and non-existing entities that occurred all in Tolkien's Silmarillion. So, because the names in Silmarillion are all made up, it means that if you weren't using neural networks, you wouldn't be able to extract the meaning of it ever, because it wouldn't get recognized. So on the picture here, you see all the data from the Silmarillion processed by the techniques I mentioned before. And so let me explain a bit more. This bubble around, it's stuff that didn't get recognized at all. These entities got recognized, but they are not connected to anything else, so it's basically the noise. But this core, on the other hand, this is what you need to look after in the data, because this holds the meaning. And if I applied some more data cleaning algorithms to get this kind of picture, so you can see already what's going on, that there are some relationships between men, elves, Sauron is there too, and sorry, I have to move on. I applied the same techniques on another data set, and I was able to get clear map of disinformation campaigns in Czech Republic in years 2020 and 2021, and it's all in the picture here. Well, it's not really intuitive, but so I will explain a bit more. The red part is done by pro-Russian entities building pro-Russian narratives to support their own interests in our country. The blue part is done by Chinese. And it's you can see like conspiration, New World Order, it's related to COVID, because by that time there was strong influence operation done by China here. And the goal was to diminish the public opinion about China being the source of COVID. But Russians, by the same time, they just wanted to blame EU for everything bad in the world. So that's why it's a central part here. This picture is not just, let's say, eye candy. I don't know if you deem it beautiful, I do. But it's also a strong mathematical data model that allows certain entities to analyze the public opinion, the cognitive warfare that is influencing it, and therefore also derive some strategic communication to counter the cognitive warfare. However, it wasn't used because I failed to explain the meaning behind this, so they just thought it's just the picture and it was left. I mentioned my project EOLAS. It is all the analytical techniques I showed you before. it's used in this project. I'm a researcher, so anything I do has to have cool name and it has to be project. So what I do, I ingested emails, websites, social networks, books. I'm working on processing images and short videos as well. And I use all the techniques I mentioned to create the map I just show you, just to create these mathematical models of the cognitive warfare. Because once you have this model, then it's possible to use existing mechanisms to, I mean, on the government level, to do some actions and support the decision makers to block it or to release some information on the public that is targeting the extra narratives to block the effects of the warfare in short term. But it has to be blocked also in long term, so it's up to you or me or us, and this is what you and me can all do about this. So you have to know yourself, because you have to be aware of what's triggering you. You have to know your emotions, you have to be aware of your demons, because everybody has some vulnerability that makes him upset or angry, and trust me, these threat actors that are using cognitive warfare against you and me, they know about it and they know pretty well how to find it. So again, be curious about the world, because it's beautiful and it's worth your interest. Don't rely on easy answers, easy solutions, quick solution, because it's usually never work like they say it does. And yeah, you should also know that if you are desperate, then you are using only a really small portion of your brain, because that is how we are built. If we are in stress, then we do not use all the brain as we could, which means that we are even more susceptible to the techniques I showed you. There are also some tools that you can use for your defense. I met with the guys from Google Jigsaw team, and they are really cool. You may have bad opinion about Google because it's this surveillance giant, but these guys are a bit different, and they actually developed some tools to help people. First of all, they collectively they hunt for the fact-checking materials to block the big disinformation campaign, not only in US but all over the world. And they spent a lot of efforts and a lot of money to have the dataset and fact-checking information verified by the universities and researchers, so it's worth of looking. Then if you are a web admin, then you may appreciate their API. It's called Perspective, and it helps you to block the toxic content of the comments, because what some of the let's say warriors or trolls of cognitive warfare do, they also spoil comment section of the websites to promote their own narratives. They also, Google Jigsaw team built a VPN server, and either you can use their VPN or you can use their software to build your own VPN. And cool fact about it is that this is some different network protocol than typical open VPN, so it's undetectable in the countries that block VPN. Last but not least, they created Android app called Intra that somehow bypasses the not protections, but the content blocking in certain countries, which may allow you even use Facebook or Google or Messenger in China, and it gets undetected because it's tunneled. They have, for certain NGOs, they released Project Shield, which means that if you are NGO fighting against disinformation and you are being targeted by DDoS, they will help you block it. They did also encryption improvement, but I would be careful about this one because I don't understand it enough to basically either support or deny that they did something good. There's also Bellingcat existing. They have good arsenal of tools if you are interested in OSINT. OSINTs are some techniques I use. I included to my project EOLAS to be able to research also the infrastructure of the cognitive warfare, not just the content. I recommend you to take also their courses. Some of them are paid, some of them are free of charge. You just have to register, and it really can teach you a lot if you are interested about what's going on in here. Also, I would really recommend following Czech elves. See the website, Čeští elfové, they have this brief announcement about current topics. They also released the Eldarial, which is the chainmail databases about, it's full of the manipulative emails, and they also run some techniques I showed you right before. So it's tagged, so you can group it by Putin promoting or Fiala denying tags, and you can filter all the text, so you can in fact check what's being said that and compare it maybe with something that your grandmother is telling you and tell her, hey, look, this is already known as manipulation. Then I would like to mention BESFALU, which is a summary of cognitive biases in Czech. If there is something in English, I don't know about it, apologies. And we have also some media ranking. Okay, stuff I use, I will jump over it because I believe that all of you use these things as well. Or maybe just take a quick picture. Cool. So, yeah, to conclude, I think that cognitive warfare is the most serious threat. At least to me, it looks like there is nothing worse than this because it blocks basically everything. And we are, by the nature, we all are very defenseless against it unless we evolve, because we have to evolve our thinking to keep fact-checking all the information, to think why are we acting like this, what are our emotions, why are we deciding in critical situations the way we are, and if it's already our will or not. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk, and we have a few minutes for questions, if you don't mind. So, folks, if you have any questions from the audience, yeah, let's take some.
So if fact checker is going to tell you that money printing by central banks is a good thing, what would you tell for them? Can they be reliable then if we get such information from them?
Well, I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer this question because, as I mentioned, I'm apolitical. So I just analyze the data, but I leave the big decisions on some other people who understand the society, how it works. And so I can only give you my opinion, and that is that fact-checking in general is not that great because it's just based on another paradigm or another hypothesis, and it brings you to a situation that you have to again check why the fact-checker decided this, based on which facts, and if it was wrong or if there is some agenda. And especially if it comes to printing money, I would be really suspicious.
Hey there. Quick question. During the presentation, you mentioned that if you are able to basically track the source of the tweet, that you are able to cancel the spread of the misinformation. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, you may hate me for this, but as a threat researcher, I'm supposed to have some contacts. If I see something evil in the network, then I can notify the companies about it and they can block it. It comes to bad servers, weird websites, malware, and it's also this sort of hate speech. More than just once, I shared some of my algorithms with evil, bad companies, so they could use them to actually extract this to extract not only hate speech or toxic speech, but really misinformation at its own. And also, sorry, I'm not really sure how to answer your questions without compromising my contacts. So let me put it this way. I asked my friends to block some stuff that I found that is malicious.
So you are basically being the
Yes, but the facts I am checking are, you can verify them. Like, if you, for instance, if you see malware spreading somewhere, it's no longer your opinion, it's a fact, it exists. And similar is with my outputs towards the Twitter. I do not ask for blocking like all of the contents that may be somebody else's opinion, but if I see it's really tied to some malicious operation, then my point is valid when I ask to block it. And it's not just about tweeting something bad. If I ought to do this, I have to find the links to some other campaigns, I have to find the entities that were spreading the misinformation, the sources, some timestamps, so it's a bit more difficult. But I was shy to admit that I may be able to do this on the soil of Parallel Police, sorry.
You're saying that both sides are engaging in this, or are you saying that only one side is doing it? You said pro and anti-Russia or anti-Iran or pro-Iran or whatever. So you're saying both sides are doing it. So both sides are evil, or how do you say?
I mentioned also what is and what is not the threat. And this is my subjective opinion, that even though I know that US and Britain and Germany and France, they are all hacking and they have their own influence operations as well, the fact or the way how they do it doesn't seem as a risk to us, like this country. That's why I didn't mention them. I only mentioned that China, Iran, and Russia. But I have to acknowledge that everybody does that.
That's it, folks. We don't have room for more questions. But again, thank you so much for your talk, Jindřich. Yeah, thank you.